Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
Hello everybody and welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. My name is Dr. Leslie Phillips and I am your host for the next hour on Unlocking Your Truth. And I'm joined obviously in the studio by Corey,
Hello everyone,
the show producer. And if you're tuning in for the first time, let me explain. Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show. And we focus in the realm of metaphysics and spirituality, intuition and healing. And every week we have a different discussion topic or a different expert that we talk to and get inspired and educated all about those kinds of things. So this week we have a guest and I'll be introducing her in a moment. But just so as you know that this is a talk show and you're welcome to join in the conversation, and we normally open the phone lines after the first segment and the number is 604-504-7441 extension 4142, and you can also send us questions to info@drlesliephillips.com. So, without further ado, today's topic has to do with conscious learning, how to awaken your potential genius and create optimal learning for all. And we have a very qualified lady who's going to talk to us all about that. Her name is Dr. Janice Fletcher. And so she's an expert in conscious learning. She helps us awaken our genius and create optimal learning through the books that she's written. One of them's called Wisdom from the Inner Teacher, turning ahas into owl moments. And owl stands for optimal wisdom learning. And her other book is called Teach with Spirit, the Teacher's Inward Journey Guide. She integrates her vast educational experience with her spiritual passion, bringing a unique process which results in consistent owl moments and in teachers teaching from a spiritual perspective. Sounds good to me. So she profoundly teaches a 6-step process which draws together disciplines such as neuroscience, biology, right and left brain research, and philosophy that leads us to the magic of receiving wisdom. And so it's her passion to support us, to transform our consciousness and accept our genius. So without further ado, let me welcome Janice to the program. Hello, Janice.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
You're
most excited about being here.
You're so welcome, and it's a delight to have you, Janice. So, tell us more about optimal wisdom learning, or OWL.
It came about after I was finished with my administrative career as an educator, because during my career I have always felt somewhat stymied. I was never able to really speak what I knew spiritually within the confines of the educational system. And so once I stepped away from that, I was able to then say whatever I want. And I have been a lifelong spiritual seeker since the age of 16, and I'm very old now at 63. So so I always had two different worlds going on, basically, when I was in my career. One was my spiritual life, and the other was my worldly life. And when I was working as an administrator in the various roles in school, it kept coming to me and being told to me that my real role is one of an inspirer, which I didn't really grasp until I wrote my second book and finished it. And then I had an aha moment while I was finishing that book that led me to know that all of the different things that I've done throughout my life were not who I thought I was, whether it was a principal or an administrator or a scuba diver or whatever it was, because my true passion and purpose is to inspire, so hopefully there will be some inspiration coming forth today. But anyway, long story short, optimal wisdom learning is a process by which we all learn. It has to do with the aha moment, which we all have. So even though this is about teachers and learning, it applies to everybody. And there's a possibility that I'll be coming forth with a live with spirit rather than a teach with spirit, because the topic is so broad that every time I speak of it, it just applies to everyone. Anyway, so optimal wisdom learning means how to learn optimally. And wisdom is truth. So the sacred truth or 2 plus 2 truth, whichever truth you want to look at, how to get that optimally, and that is by either brain-based through the right brain, physiologically or spiritually. You can look through whatever lens you're most comfortable viewing it through, but the process is the same for all. And so once we learn this process that goes on within us all the time, it's actually just bringing an awareness to what's already happening, then we begin to learn optimally. It's a very long answer to your question. I'm so sorry. I hope
that's okay.
you can get an answer there.
Yes, I will delve a bit more deeply. I must say I'm not quite there yet, but I think perhaps I was going to ask you about this later. But I think perhaps if I jump forward to asking you about this 6-step process. So you say we all learn the same, and it's done through a 6-step process. So what's the 6-step process?
Well, again, once we start looking through this, you can choose your lens. You can look at this process spiritually, biologically, physiologically, psychologically. But we begin with a seeking. We want to know the answer to something, or we're seeking.
Right.
So on the mundane level, it'd be which house should I buy? I'm going to buy a house. On the spiritual level, what is God? Anything in between, we have a desire, we have a seeking that's happening, and so that seeking is the very first step. And so when that seeking starts within us, then we begin to look for the answer. And as we look for the answer, our left brain, which is the logical, linear thinking brain, the very sequential, grounded, how to tie your shoe kind of part of your brain, goes to work. And we start searching in the computer of our left brain, and we look for the answer and look for the answer and look for the answer. And if we're headed to an aha moment, we won't find the answer, because the aha will be the answer. So we search and we search and we search in our left brain until inevitably we say, I give up, or we'll table this discussion till the next meeting, or I don't know, I'm going to have to ask somebody else, or I'm going to have to pray on it, or I'm going to have to meditate and think about this, or whatever it is that then stops the seeking process. And that puts you right into the second step. And the second step is to still the mind. And so the mind gets stilled when we finally give up. And when we look at what we're doing, when we say, I don't know, or I give up, that's surrender. So from a spiritual point of view, that's, dark night of the soul. That's down on your knees. That's, I give up. I don't know. I'm needing the answer from something else, someone else, some higher purpose, whatever. Or I'm going to go ask Joe down the street or my colleague tomorrow at work. But one way or the other, my ego is then surrendered and I need help to find this answer. So that is the second step, stilling the mind. And then we move, once our left mind is stilled, because we are no longer trying to figure it out, then we automatically go into the third step, which is listen. And we can listen because the left chatter, the monkey brain, the ego is quiet, or the left brain is no longer working, whichever way you want to look at it. And the right brain is now open. The right brain is the arena for wisdom, truth, intuition to come forth, or ahas, answers to come forth. And so all of that happened has prepared us to get us to the place the conditions are now set for our right brain to be wide open so that we are ready to receive. Because we can't receive from a spiritual point of view. I keep going back to the spiritual because you're a spiritual show. Until we are ready to receive, until we are empty of ourselves. And once we are empty of ourselves, then we have this big vessel ready to hear and listen. So that was the next step, is to listen. And so Einstein said about the brain, he called the left brain a faithful servant. Because the left brain is like a computer. Whatever you put into it, you can get out. And you can compute whatever thing you want. And so it's very faithful and it serves us well. The right brain is, Einstein referred to it as a sacred gift. And if we truly understand or believe Einstein, then the right brain being the sacred gift, we need both because we have to tie our shoes, but why not live in the right brain where the wisdom, truth, sacred truths, intuition, higher knowledge is coming true? So anyway, now we're listening. So that's the next step. And then we move to the next step, which is to act upon it. Now, Leslie, you know as well as I do that there has been a time in your life, or many, when you've said to yourself, like everybody else out there that's listening, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have said it. I knew I shouldn't have gone there. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, we all have moments like that, don't we?
Yeah. So when how is it that we know that? You know, I mean, we know it with the depth of our being, but how do we know that we should have never done that or said that or whatever? Because we heard, but we didn't act on it. We listened. It came in. The information, the answer, the intuition, the sacred truth came in. But we said to it, I don't like that. I'd rather buy that house. Or that's not the truth. That's not where God is. This is where God is. Whatever it is we're seeking, we don't listen, and we listen, but we don't act on it. So in order to make it worthy, in order to take the sacred truth, and if we really look at that adjective as sacred truth, then why wouldn't we listen to that, even though it probably makes us uncomfortable, because most of the things that come in the right brain are not normal. I mean, they're not of the world, so it might have us buy a house that's around the corner that made no sense whatsoever, but we may figure it out later. But anyway, so we have to act on, the next step is to act on it. And so then once you act on it, then the final step is to test it. And that is that somewhere down the line, you're going to say to yourself, wow, I would have never guessed that I should buy the house around the corner, but now I see why that works and why it's better for me that happened. Or you can actually go back through the process and you can see the steps that you went through. I began seeking a house in January, and then, I thought about it, and you can go through the whole steps to see how it unfolded until you are now where you need to be, if you acted on the answer that came in. And that is the story of the aha moment. Does that make sense to you?
It totally does. Yeah, actually, it all makes absolute sense to me. I teach a course called Unlock Your Intuition, and it's kind of like a 7 or 8 module course, and you're basically talking about the different modules in my course. So I think we're of like mind on this, actually. So yeah, it makes absolute sense to me. I completely agree with what you're saying.
And, well, there are no accidents, so here we are.
Yeah.
Anyway, we also take this into the classroom, because if we can have teachers first learn this about themselves, so that they see how their ahas are happening, then they can stand in the classroom and they can intuitively know or know from a higher source, or know a better answer than their left brain would get them, what to do next with the student that they're teaching. And so because you have to teach it to the teachers, and then they automatically, everybody that just heard that explanation will now be much more aware and articulate with their aha moments, and they will be hearing them and seeing them, and they're forevermore changed. Love you to buy the book, but you just got the gist of it, and it happened. And there it is. It's a sacred truth, so it's free. But so that's why we give it. We need it in the classroom, because then the next step is for the teachers to then teach the students how to fish rather than fishing for them, and that is to teach them what their conditions are of when their alpha state is. Because when we move into the right brain, we move ourselves into the alpha state, which I'm sure you know well, Leslie, which is the dreamy state, the half-conscious state. And that's when the truth and the intuition comes in. And so what we need to learn about ourselves is, when is it that I'm in my alpha state? Am I swimming in the ocean? Am I walking my dog? Am I in the shower? Water is a big conduit. When is it that I receive mine, so that I can be not demanding of it, because you can't demand it. It's a sacred gift. It'll come usually as a surprise, but you can also be ready for it and open and ready to receive. So you can put yourself more into the conditions of your alpha state, and then be ready for it and hear it more clearly. And the more you do it, the more astute you become in the process. And before you know it, you're living a lot there rather than in the left brain.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for all of that marvelous information about your process for helping people to have their owl moments. I have to go to a break now, but when we come back from the break, I would love to delve more deeply into this, and especially perhaps from the perspective of the education system, and how much opportunity there is to make changes these days. So hold that thought. I'm going to put the ads on, and we'll be back in a few moments. Well, hello listeners, welcome back to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. My name is Dr. Leslie Phillips. I'm your host, and we've been enjoying a wonderful conversation with Dr. Janice Fletcher, who is an expert in education and awakening potential genius. And before the break, Janice was sharing her 6-step process to have OWL moments, which stands for optimal wisdom learning. And so she took us through, the first part is to have a question and be seeking an answer for your question. The second part is to be able to still your mind, quiet that busy monkey mind. Number 3, to listen and receive your intuition. Number 4 was to act on it. I think I'm going to miss one here. And number 5 was to test it. Which one have I missed there?
I have to think out loud here. I don't know. You desire. You're seeking, and then you still the mind, and then you listen, and then you act.
And you test, that's 5.
I know, I'll have
Oh,
to.
well, that's okay.
It'll come, I'll have an aha moment here.
Yes, yes. Well, and when I teach this, one of the other things that I add to that is, calm your emotions, because the emotions can actually get in the way. Let go of effort, because when you're in effort, it's the intellect. And also just let go of perfectionism, that there's a perfect way to access your intuition, because there isn't. There's just your way. And fear. Sometimes people, especially from the perspective I'm teaching it, because we're calling it intuition, right? And sometimes people have got educational or religious programming that makes them afraid of that. So, thank you so much. And, because you worked in the educational field for your whole career before you transitioned into this, which is your passion and your true purpose, I'm really interested in finding out your opinion about how receptive the educational system is nowadays to this type of thinking. My method for teaching intuition is meditation, and I know that some of the schools are allowing meditation, but just from sort of anti-stress perspective. But so are things changing? Because I'm sure when you and when I went to school, it was really a single track, training you in your intellect, in your logical mind, and not really leaving any scope for any other ways of acquiring information. So do you have hope for our future education system?
I do, but I must backtrack. The step we missed was surrender. Surrender is an actual step.
Wonderful.
Which comes between, that's number 2. Before you still your mind, you surrender.
Great.
Yes, I do have hope because I'm an optimist, and because it's necessary. The educational system here in the U.S. is, pretty sad, actually. Like you said, it still is traditionally working in the left brain, and to try and make the system better for decades now, it has been focusing more and more and more on the left brain rather than the right brain to get answers and tests and ways that they can actually, have something on paper that says this child is passing or learned that or whatever. So it's sort of gone backwards in that. However, educators are so much more knowledgeable and more sophisticated than they were ever. It's amazing what a teacher has to know now. They are a psychologist. They are, a social worker as well as the curriculum leader, the parent, everything. And a good teacher is a good teacher is a good teacher, and no matter what happens with whatever rules or restrictions are imposed upon a good teacher, they will always find a way to get to the creativity, no matter how many restraints that they have. And the system has traditionally allowed the gifted or the accelerated students to be the benefactors of the kind of teaching that we should be doing. The open-ended project, exciting, think for yourself, think outside the box, kind of right brain thinking. And so because if you don't know how to read, then why would we be looking at making you look at how creative you could be when you need to know how to, learn the alphabet, is why this gets stifled. However, technology is helping us a great deal because no longer is it necessary for us to know, the 50 states and the capitals of them, because we will Google that in half a second. And so because we have, that kind of left brain information, whether it's the calculation of any kind of mathematical whatever, look at Watson. You know what Watson is, right? The IBM Watson. Anyway, it's a wonderful robot computer that is now diagnosing cancer and so on. It's just amazing. Anyway, so because of technology, we no longer are going to be needing the left brain as we did before in that way, so that the jobs and the careers that are needed are creative thinking and being able to go from one thing to another and be able to multitask and be able to problem solve. So the way to get ahead in the world today is not by, learning the encyclopedias, but by being able to problem solve. So because of that, educators and schools and curriculum departments and so on are opening up as much as they can. And you'll find it more in the private schools, the Montessori schools, and all the private schools are much more that way. But in public schools, with my history, you still have the mainstream student, and I've always been the advocate for that mainstream and mainstream education, because as I said, a good teacher is a good teacher is a good teacher. It doesn't matter what you find a good teacher standing in the grocery store where he or she will, have a child in front of them and they'll be teaching them how to, add and subtract on the candy bar in front of them, or telling them to not run down the aisle or whatever. They just can't not be who they are. And so, as I said, and somebody who is that called to it, and I believe it is a calling, and a sacred calling at that, and a very, very, very important sacred calling for teachers, much more much more sacred and much more important than is ever given, or respect is given, or acknowledgement is given to teachers. They impact our entire future, with every child. I mean, our lives have been molded by the teachers that we've had, good, bad, or indifferent. So it's an amazing responsibility and sacred responsibility. So it is my message to the educators and I have a chapter on each of these topics in the book, one on the calling and one on the responsibility that comes with the position of being an educator, and you have these however many students in front of you and every thought, word, and deed that you do with them has an impact. And, so it's coming from a much more important look. And so therefore I do have hope, because I believe that the world in general is lightening up. While it's getting darker, it's still lightening up. And so I do have hope, yes.
Yes, I mean, I agree with you. It's sort of it's getting more polarized in a way, but the hope comes with the bit that's getting brighter and brighter. So how receptive are teachers being to your philosophy and to your books, and what kind of uptake are you seeing to your ideas within the educators who are still practicing as educators in schools?
It's difficult to get my message into a mainstream public education system. Because it's not reading, writing, and arithmetic. Per se. And whenever I say this in all humility, because it comes from God or Spirit, it's not mine. The books are not mine. But whenever I speak or train, the message is very, very well received. And because teachers are, to me, generally, as a stereotype, I will say generally good people, or they would not be in the profession for the most part, most of the teachers, although there's bad eggs everywhere. And then when they hear this message, they resonate with it completely. Always. Because it's truth. There's no way around that. They know that the purpose of a teacher is to have their students have an aha moment for whatever it is that they're trying to teach, whatever they're responsible to teach. That is their job, is to make the student go, got it, oh, that's it, I have the answer. And so, yes, they get it. And so oftentimes I can not talk about spirit and just talk about the brain-based learning, right? I have lots of different articles on that and workshops on that, boundless creativity and so on. And that avenue is allowed in. Inevitably, we end up talking about where do the answers come from. And everybody has their own answer, and there is no right answer. Is it higher self? Is it God? Is it intuition? Whatever, it doesn't, but it comes from somewhere. So, and the teachers can relate that when they put their students into the creative mode, that they're more engaged. Why? Because it's more fun. It's not restrictive. It's unlimited. There's no judgment, because there's no, if I'm drawing a picture or figuring out how to solve something, you come up with lots of wrong answers before you come up with the right answer. So it's a lot more engaging, and so they relate to it. It's me getting in front of them that is the hardship, and also myself not marketing myself.
Yeah, but it sounds to me that what opens more doors for you is taking more of a scientific, brain-based learning approach, as opposed to a sort of non-denominational spiritual approach. Did I hear right? Yes. Yeah.
I mean, and of course you can't. I mean, I struggled with the second book called Teach with Spirit. The Teacher's Inward Journey Guide, and the whole handbook is to have the teachers walk through and experience for themselves that they actually experience the spirit. So as I talk about spirit, however they define that within their religions or philosophies or belief systems or whatever, I don't have any But, the word God bounces around in there, and so as I was working on this book, it was like lots of editors and people warning me, don't put the word God in there, and you'll never get it anywhere if you have the word God in there. And so that was, a real struggle for me because, it's one of the many names, if you will.
Right. Yes, we all struggle to find a different word for that. I tend to use the word source or trusted source. It's such a shame that word turns so many people off. But
so what I ended up writing was the guidance. I asked my spiritual teacher, actually, and he said, just use the one, and so we can all relate to the one. Whatever you make it, whatever you want. If it's Jesus, Buddha, Allah, whatever, it's the one, and that's how you talk about it. But, and so I don't, I do all sorts.
Hello, listeners. We're sorry about that. We just got some feedback on the phone system, and unfortunately, we had to hang up on our guest because of the feedback on the phone system. And so we hope that she's going to call back, and I'm going to take us to a break while we wait for her to call back. But I'll just say that you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie, and we've been interviewing Dr. Janice Fletcher, and she is an educational expert, and she's been telling us about her books, Teach with Spirit and Wisdom from the Inner Teacher. We'll be back after these few short messages. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. My name's Dr. Leslie Phillips, and I am your host. And you've been listening live on 101.7 FM, broadcasting across the Fraser Valley. And you can also live stream us from civl.ca, catch the podcasts at drlesliephillips.com. Well, we're delighted today to be having a very interesting discussion with a lady called Dr. Janice Fletcher, who is an educator who has written some books. One of them is called Teach with Spirit, and the other is Wisdom from the Inner Teacher. And it's all about helping teachers to help their students to access their higher wisdom, to access their inner knowing, to use their sacred gift, as well as their oh gosh, I've forgotten what tool it is now. But you know that quote from Albert Einstein? Janice is on the homepage of my website.
Oh, really?
That's hilarious that you use that quote. Yes, it is. It's one of my favorite quotes as well, because we've got it the wrong way around. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about your two books, Teach with Spirit and Wisdom from the Inner Teacher. And, and also about your passion. You're pouring your passion into these books. Why do you want to share this information with the world? How can it help us all? And if we were to purchase either of those books, how would it help us?
Okay. The books are the integration of my this life's experiences. And that is the vast educational experience that I've had and my strong spiritual searching and seeking that I have done throughout my life. So they finally have formulated as an integrated thing here within the first book, Wisdom from the Inner Teacher. And it has to do with, as we talked about, having everybody understand that all the answers are within us. And so when we're looking at a math test as a student, the answer is in there. And believe it or not, if we really get ourselves quiet enough and learn how to access our intuition, the answers will come forth. So
I believe it, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you. There's a form of intuition called abstract intuition. And that's, the teacher can put up a math equation and Johnny gets the right answer and gets accused of cheating because he didn't show how he worked it out on his paper. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry to interrupt.
No, please. That's, we are doing something together here. That there's other things happening with us meeting, and don't know what they are. But
well, I do for sure. And let me I wrote a book a few years ago, and it's a novel, and it's called The Midas Tree. And the approximate reading age of this novel is about 12, and it's an adventure story. A bit like the sort of, if you imagine the Chronicles of Narnia or The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe, except woven within the story are spiritual teachings, and woven within the story is it teaches the reader how to meditate and how to use very specific meditation techniques to open and access the intuition and to bypass the intellect. So all of these things that we've been talking about. And so I'd love to have an offline conversation with you about your work and my work. And because I actually created a program for teachers to use the audiobook of my novel as a way of teaching children to meditate and access their intuition. And I haven't done anything to market that at all. But it sounds like you and I have some things in common that we should definitely explore them. Anyway,
yes.
Anyway,
my purpose is to literally inspire not just teachers. I mean, I have my passion, and I've been groomed in this life. I believe brought in as this left brain administrator that has with the spiritual side to me, so that I am acceptable. I am not a healer. I'm not a shaman wearing, I'm very normal looking and acting, and I have a strong set of credentials. So I believe so that people can trust me, because everybody trusts their principal, right? So,
yes, yeah.
For this message to come through somebody with those credentials, it's much more believable or comfortable.
Yeah, and we have that in common as well, because I have a PhD in science, and I used to work as a scientist and a business development professional before I started doing intuitive readings and teaching people how to meditate. And I feel the same thing, that people will stop and pay attention to someone who has the conventional education, because, if somebody like that is saying these things, then perhaps there must be something in it.
Right.
Yeah. So,
for instance, I have a friend who's a very, very wonderful sound therapist with his own voice, and heals enormous sicknesses and so on with his voice, and does a miraculous things, but he wears a mohawk and all sorts of things, and so there's so many people that can't get beyond how he looks to get to the treatment. It's a stumbling block sometimes. I guess everything's perfect, but it's all unfolding as it should. But so it is my purpose then to become the inspirer, to be the inspirer that I've always been, and to then inspire others to recognize that spiritual moments and aha moments are not just occasional, that we may only recognize them as, that was the answer I was looking for, and we recognize that big aha moment. But once we understand how it got there, then we can look back and say, wow, yes, I was in my alpha state here, right? I didn't even know it, but I was in an alpha state. And, and I also did ask a question. I did give it up, which means I did surrender, and then I did listen, and I heard it. So when you do all that, then you become aware, and you're learning optimally. So, yes, that's the passion, is that everybody will recognize that all of life is learning, and all of life is spiritual.
Yeah.
So that every moment of every second of every day, we are living in the spiritual essence of who we are, fully connected and open to receive from Spirit, God, Allah, whatever, to receive whatever information that we need to receive, and then share that with the world. So that is underlying all of the words in this book, sometimes secretively and sometimes very overtly, but that is the whole purpose, is that there will be, if it ever gets to a wider widespread audience. I don't know. I mean, I guess that would be my dream or my hope.
Let's intend that it does, and we're learning today that there are a few of us around who are holding the same intention. I believe Corey's got a question or two for you.
Well, a question there, okay. more or less a statement in essence. Bill Clinton had a quote that I really, really liked a few years back, and it was, "It doesn't matter how much people think you know until they know how much you care." And if you add that on, it doesn't matter how much you care it doesn't matter how much they think you care until you know yourself that you care. And I think that's very apropos for what you're doing. People know a lot. They can't get it across generally all the time, and it's not because they don't know how to transmit the information, but they don't transmit it from the right place. And it gets very, very difficult to work with. I have some experience with the private schools, some of the, I can't remember the name, the baccalaureate schools. I'm not sure if that's the name. What I love about their teaching was they never taught kids, really. The kids taught themselves.
Right.
They would just give them a question and said, go and study this. And they would come back with answers. And it shows at that point the teaching is from the kids themselves, and they care, and they do amazing jobs at it. It's phenomenal. I kudos to you for doing what you're doing. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I agree with everything that you said. Yes, it is wonderful when we allow students to do that, and many schools do the Socratic method or whatever, or projects, because then you get turned on, and then you're excited, and then it's wonderful to find the answers and so on. But the books are also used as book studies. Some people use them in the schools, a chapter a month, and the teachers then study each chapter. And the handbook is designed to be a personal reflection, and it could be used by anybody. You don't have to be a teacher, as I said. But those are some of the purposes. And they've also been used in universities and education classes and teacher prep classes. So, and I do keynotes and all those things. That all the different kind of workshops.
I can see salespeople using these books. I mean, because sales is all about, in truth, it's all about getting information across to another individual, and just throwing stuff at somebody that, I've been in sales. I was in sales for a long time. Just throwing information at somebody doesn't work. You have to know how to teach them and move them along the process so that they understand exactly what you're telling them and showing them. So, I mean, there's another market in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, good point.
Yeah, we're getting towards the end of the show. So,
shucks.
I know. So, what's your favorite aha moment that you've had?
No, that would be when I found my spiritual path or guru when I was 16. Wasn't expecting it at all. Wasn't looking for it. I didn't know I was looking for it, but I was. And so when I met somebody who was following this particular path with this particular guru, it was as though, they say when you're ready, the teacher will appear. Mm-hmm. I must have been ready, because it was momentous. My life just shifted on a moment. And life as I knew it no longer interested me. It just was pivotal. Just absolutely. I no longer really care about the world or my friends. And I was only 16, so, and I don't care about any of that. And now all I want to do is see God. So that was my most important aha moment, I would think, that has been brought me here with you today.
Yes, So do you think we all naturally have our moments, but I suppose your 6-step process is teaching people how to hold on to them, how to not let them just dissolve as soon as they flow into our consciousness, which is quite often what happens.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. It is designed to make you aware of the process that's already there. Once you're aware of it, then the job is, there are two homeworks for the listeners, and that is because they've gotten the essence of it, and that is to first note when you're having an aha moment, when an answer comes in, or an epiphany or whatever, and then to be grateful, proof right there, it is the sacred truth you've been given, and then go back and do an autopsy on it, and look at the steps. When did you begin speaking that question? When did you surrender? How was that? Where were you in the still the mind? And then what kind of alpha state? Where were you for your alpha state? So the more you go back and look at that, then you ingrain it, and then that process is, what you're doing is you're actually making a superhighway between the left and the right brain by doing that, rather than the rickety road that we have right now. Yes. So that builds access.
Well, thank you. Now I do have to wind up the show, so I want to ask you to tell the listeners how they can get hold of you if they would like to know more about you.
The easiest way is my website, which is janicefletcher.com, JANICEFLETCHER.com. I do have a Facebook out there called Optimal Wisdom Learning, but my website is like a Christmas tree with more than you ever need to know about me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We have to let you go, but I for sure will be in touch with you to see if we can brainstorm some ideas. And we'll see you next week, everyone.
See you, folks.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. Come back again.